As the market for grand chauffeur-driven cars waned, a new clientele emerged from post-war austerity. Rich owner-drivers who wanted comfort and speed. This 1955 Bentley Continental belongs to retired engineer Bill Metcalf. Like many Bentley owners, Bill does not cosset his car, but drives it hard.
It is a sporting Bentley. It's a sports saloon, in other words. So it has some characteristics, but it's a compromise. You've got incredibly sure suspension, which allows for high speed. It handles well at high speed. On the other hand, you have comfort.
When new, the Continental cost around £7,000. A top speed of over 120 miles per hour made it the fastest four-seater production car in the world.
It was specifically designed for Continental motoring, and in them days, of course, speed limits weren't like they are today. So you could buy this car, look at Paris, Milan, or St. Petersburg, and you could drive there, providing you had the right documents.
In the 1950s, the Continental, with less chrome than many of its contemporaries, looked Spartan in appearance, and its shape was about more than just style.
It was developed in a wind tunnel, and its drag forces are much less. The shape is not just because it looks nice, it is functionable for a high speed of, say, 120, 130 miles an hour. Wherever you go, people do admire it, therefore it's a British ambassador.
Over the last few years, Bill's Bentley has done 80,000 miles all over Europe.
I've owned Bentleys now for 50 years nearly, and one wonderful thing about the marque is that the company still produce 99% of the parts. If something wears out, you can just go and get a new part.
Of the 208 Continentals built, 206 survive. Few chauffeur-driven limousines now have a real working life. Only our royal family still use a fleet of grand cars in the traditional manner. Behind Buckingham Palace, the residents of the Royal Mews have always taken great care of royal horsepower, both ancient and nearly modern.
This is the garage that houses the state Rolls Royces. We have in fact positions in here for 5 of them, and as you can see, number 2 Rolls Royce is away at this present moment. It just shows you the workings of this place. They're in and out of the garages all the time. The cars themselves are actually basic standard Rolls Royces. However, a Rolls Royce is not a basic car. It's a beautiful piece of engineering, and they're special for the job that they do more than the vehicle themselves. When they go on state occasions, they look absolutely magnificent when they're all sort of dressed up, ready for a parade.
With the arrival of Her Majesty and Prince Philip, all 2,000 guests are finally assembled.
Her Majesty has got standard Rolls Royces with no extra gizmos or whatever, just a straightforward working vehicle.
Stark simplicity and high-quality materials give these cars a confident dignity. If you are transported in a car like this, it says you are important, not the car.
The lords in waiting would go to the airport to welcome senior officials in from other countries on behalf of Her Majesty. The state cars actually belong to the state. The cars themselves don't have any number plates on them at all. The reason for this is because they are not privately owned vehicles. They belong to the country.
The country acquired this Rolls-Royce Phantom 4 in 1948. Known as Number 5, it is being driven by former Staff Sergeant and now Queen's head chauffeur, Joe Last. For any of the 8 royal chauffeurs, care of the car is every bit as important as driving.
The day-to-day running, what I would do is go around and check the vehicle, lights, tyres, etc. Opening the bonnet. No, bonnet goes over. Making sure it doesn't go right over and bend. Checking dipstick, checking the oil. Visually walking around, checking the radiator. Make sure it's topped up with water. Also checking fan belt, make sure it's not come loose. Visual check to make sure all leads, everything's okay. Check to make sure the water bottle's full up. Hoses, everything looks okay, no leaks, nothing anywhere. On it. Closing the bonnet, making sure it's secure. Walking around, checking the tyres, checking all lights, make sure nothing's broken. Wing mirrors, and in the back, actually, as I can show you, I'll just get the bits out of the side, which are in here. This opens. This key actually opens the boot, which is different to any other press button boats on modern day cars. And carries its own foot pump. And underneath here you can see actually a complete toolkit. In the boat we have a complete rebuild for the engine if necessary. As you can see here, there is the hoses, brake hoses, new spark plugs, a coil, the springs, valve springs, etc. And underneath here, I'll take my gloves off to lift this out. Underneath here we have everything else that would be needed. Jubilee clips, new wiper blades, gaskets, and everything that's needed for a roadside overhaul. And in here we have all the bulbs, etc. Headlight bulbs, the bulbs that goes in the doors, indicator bulbs, and spare fuses, which are on these ones are still wire, and unlike the modern ones, which are now glass. The thing is, they're all precision made, so it everything fits exactly, so that there's no rattling around in the boat.
King George VI, the Queen's father, always travelled with his personal mechanic. But today the prospect of Her Majesty sitting on the verge while Joe last fixes the car seems unlikely. Though it must be comforting to know one's toolkit is up to the job, it will be a spare car rather than a boot full of spares that handles any breakdown. While previous attempts to make big cars brash and fashionable have come and gone, the austere dignity of the Royal Fleet ensures their survival to remind us of the tradition of all Britain's grand cars.